Hi everyone, Helen Blunden here. Hope you're happy, healthy and well. It's not time for a book review this week. Instead, I'm going to talk about our little adventure with my husband to go to the Clunes Booktown Festival that was on the 22nd and the 23rd of March. And it's going to be more of a vlog style video, and I took some footage and I'd love to share some things that we saw and did at this town, so that you can maybe also find out if there is a specific book town like this in your country or anywhere near you that you can visit. But first, let me just say that it feels like I haven't been on video for a while, and you may not be aware, but I create these videos all in the one hit, and then I schedule them to publish every week on a Thursday about 7 o'clock in the morning. So it feels like I haven't been in front of a camera for ages. So my apologies. You'll probably notice the difference is sometime in the future, you might see that my hair has grown, you might see certain changes and you go, gee, that was a quick change in a week. Well, it wasn't a week, it could be up to a month since I do these videos. But nevertheless, do not worry if I'm not. I reckon I could die at some stage and you'd still get my videos for at least up to 4 weeks. That's not really funny. Okay, let's talk about Clunes. Right, so why did we go to Clunes? Now, Clunes is a very small village. I guess you could call it a very rustic village. In fact, it felt like I had been transported into some kind of country and western village. It kind of had that look about it. Actual fact, Clunes is just outside of Melbourne. It's a couple of hours drive out of Melbourne, and it was the site where the first gold was discovered, which set up an onrush of people coming to Australia to try and seek their fortune out in the goldfields. So the place itself was established around 1850, and a lot of the buildings that we saw there were quite old, and they had quite ornate verandas, and it seemed like it was a blast from the past. The drive to get there was relatively easy, although, you know, we don't travel that much. And so when you put in the directions into Siri and she takes you through these back roads, there was a time driving there, I thought, right, we're going to get killed on the road, because she took us down this one lane road in the middle of nowhere. We're down to one road. This is not right.
Look, this would be exactly the same sort of country roads that we'd be driving around in England.
Crazy.
Where there's one lane and, no, the only thing missing are the big hedges.
We should be on a highway by now. Past fields, we saw a lot of sheep, we saw a lot of cows. Look, in all honesty, it was nice, but you know, your mind starts playing tricks on you when technically, if you want to visit Clunes, it's not that big a deal. You can use the highway and the roads will just take you there, but just be mindful of where Siri takes you. So let's talk about Clunes. I mentioned that it's a very historical town, but it is internationally recognised as an international book town. And there is a website that establishes what is an international book town. And these book towns are rustic villages, small rural towns where there are second-hand and antiquarian bookshops are concentrated. And most of the book towns have developed in villages that have historic interest or scenic beauty. And in Victoria, Clunes is our book town. And in fact, I don't think there's a book town in any other state. Clunes is the book town of Australia. And every year it holds the Clunes Book Festival. Festival of storytelling. It is a festival of books, and the entire main street is closed off and has a whole heap of different food vans, entertainment, and this year had over 120 booksellers concentrated on the main street where they could sell their books, all secondhand books, obviously. There were independent booksellers as well, but there were also a lot of self-published authors who used the opportunity to sell their books. So if you are a book lover, you love fan fiction, you have a favourite author here in Australia, guaranteed they would have been here this weekend. Either you could have met them in person or you had gone to many of the presentations that were being held around the town. And these presentations were held in different buildings, and I like to sneak a peek into some of the buildings. One particular building was a place where Mad Max, the 1979 Mel Gibson movie, which is iconic for Australia, was shot, and they were in there. They did their presentations in there, and just outside you could see the motorcycles and the Interceptor cars that were in pristine condition, and they were there on show, and you could go around and take photos or video of them. When you go to the Clunes Book Festival, there is obviously an entry ticket to get in. It cost us about $10, I think it was. Not that expensive, and you can buy your ticket on the day and you get your little wristband and off you go, and that wristband actually gives you access to the entire book festival except for the presentations, which you have to book online separately. The presentations happen in all the different buildings around town, as I mentioned. And what was also fantastic about this town is that you could park your car if you drive there at the showgrounds, which is actually quite typical of rural villages, I guess, in Australia. You park your car at the showground and then you have a short walk down to Main Street where all the buildings are concentrated. The Rotary Club had excellent books, a mix of non-fiction and also current fiction. I found an book now. My husband and I have completely different tastes in books. I love more modern literature and classics, and he prefers the genre of crime, thrillers, and more current bestsellers. He's a big fan of Stephen King. He has collections of Layman. He has collections of James Herbert, Tom Clancy. A lot of the books that are in our house are all his. Mine are concentrated in other parts of the house. So the modern literature and the classics don't mix in with the rest of the books. But that's not to say that we have arguments over them. No, we can actually both appreciate our different genres because it makes some interesting conversations when we talk about our books, because he can give me examples of current genres or current graphic novels and anything else that actually aligns to the stories that I read. So he gives more current interpretations of different themes that I'm talking about. So it just goes to show that it doesn't really matter what you read. You can actually find a connection regardless of what you read. A lot of the booksellers that I found in Clunes were all quite current books and current fiction and current sellers and popular fiction. So I didn't buy that many. We chatted to different authors as well who talked about their process of writing a book, and I thought to myself, maybe I could do that one day. I'll write a book and then go to the book festival and chat to people. Yeah, when I can get my ass into gear, I guess. Okay, maybe not. I love reading more than writing, I guess. The main street was full of entertainment, was full of food vans and booksellers right along the middle. Along the sides of the street, they had different buildings that were open, again, selling books, and all the stores along the main street either sold books as well, or they sold knickknacks, and there was various op shops. There were food places as well, but there was just a lot of people there on the day because the weather was glorious. We were blessed to have such good weather. Now, Clunes is situated in a bit of a valley as well, and it's surrounded obviously by low-lying hills or volcanic hills, which obviously are extinct. But one thing that we found was the internet, the getting 5G coverage was pretty bad actually, and a lot of the booksellers had electronic payment systems, and there were queues for the ATMs everywhere. And so one of the things we would recommend that if you go to Clunes in the future for future book festivals is always carry some backup cash with you. We were lucky. I'm a bit old school when it comes to this stuff, and I carry cash wherever I go for exactly this reason. So we were quite lucky because it meant we could buy our books and we could eat something as well without having to endure the long queues. When you go to Clunes as well, the delight in not only going through books and trawling through suitcases and dusty bookshelves is also having a look at the beautiful buildings. Now, these buildings were built in the 1850s through to the 1870s, and they were a mix of timber but also some beautiful brick buildings that were the post office or the communities hall or the bank back in the day of the late 1800s. Now, a lot of these buildings are in, I guess, a dilapidated state, but I can imagine that it costs a lot to try and keep them renovated and repair them. But it lent to a very rustic charm, and I loved it. More so when I had tired of looking through books, I was looking at the fascias, I was looking at the old signs of the shops which they had still kept. I'd been looking up to the roofs and to the ornate, distinctive ironwork of the verandas, and it just reminded me of being in some kind of country and western town. There were so welcoming, and everyone was in a very positive vibe. Obviously helped with the weather, obviously helped with a lot of people there, and the whole vibe of being around fellow book lovers. After the book town, we drove back to our accommodation in Ballarat, and I highly recommend a trip to Ballarat if you're ever in Victoria. It was the site of our goldfields, and in Victoria, the gold rush pretty much made our state back in the 1800s. It brought an influx of people from overseas to try and find gold. And we stayed in a little studio apartment at the back of a house, which we found it on Airbnb, and which was fantastic. It was quiet, and it was just what we needed to rest. Unfortunately, there was a power outage, so we couldn't even read the books that we had read, but we were so exhausted by the end of the day that all we could do was just sleep and wait until the next day. Very quickly, what did you get at the Booktown Festival?
I got the 3 John le Carre books, all featuring George Smiley. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, The Honourable Schoolboy, and Smiley's People.
Yes.
Those 3 books together formed the Carla trilogy within the scope of the Smiley novels. So
when are you planning to read those?
I'd be amazed if I actually get to them this year. But seeing as how from the 2nd of February next year, there's lots of leave and then retirement, I'll have plenty of time to read them. So, Helen, what did you get from the Clunes Book Festival?
I got 3 books as well. The very first one is Elena Ferrante, who many people would know her books, but guess what? I've not read them, but I like this one because there are pictures in it, and it's written like a journal. I think a few of the excerpts in here resonated with me, and I think I might like this book. And it's an ex-library book, and for $3 it's a bargain. The second book I got is my Anita Bruckner crush, and it's called A Closed Eye. And those of you who have been following me on the YouTube channel know I'm crazy about Anita Bruckner. So when I saw this book, immediately I got it, even though it was $2 extra, $5. And last of all, Ian McEwan, who I love his writing, but I never got round to this one because I thought it's just too big, and I really didn't know what to expect. I got this one for $3 as well. So 3 books, 3 bargains, all less than $10. Yay. So that's all I have to say about our short trip to Clunes for the Booktown Festival. I would highly recommend you visit Clunes for maybe in the new year if you're interested in something like this. If you're a Victorian or if you are a book lover in Australia, have a trip out here and wangle some touristy time in the local region and support the local booksellers and support the independent booksellers and these country towns who are also doing their best to try and invite and welcome people from all around Australia and fellow book lovers. I would also recommend that you check out the International Booktown website and find out where your booktown is in your country and pay a visit to it. Go to the various booksellers, chat with them, find one of your favourite books in their books and support their community. Thank you for listening and thank you for watching. Bye for now. We'll resume our normal video book reviews in the next week. Bye.